Hey everybody, and all my beautiful friends. Welcome to my official first podcast with my favorite guest that I could have fathomed or could have thought of, that I really, really wanted this person. If this was my last week on earth, people often ask you, who would you have dinner with? Who would you take, to on a special trip if this was your last week on earth? And this person that is here with me in studio is somebody that I absolutely love and adore, somebody I look up to and would 1000% be spending my last moments with on this earth. He has inspired me in so many ways, more ways than I could possibly think of. Just to name a few short accolades that he's done in his life, he is a NLP coach. He is a entrepreneur. He has run a drug rehabilitation center. He has done more cool things than I could say I have. He's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He has a bulletproof mindset, and this man is my dad. Welcome to the podcast, Dad.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate coming to a podcast, and without sounding too cheesy, having watched you grow up, this is an exciting moment for me because it means that a protege has turned to an eagle and is flying high.
Yes. Well, it's even more special to have you here and to record this. So, thank you so much for dropping everything to be here with me. I have been wanting to do a podcast for a long time. Actually, I started this podcast nearly 2 years ago and have labeled it Sarah B Limitless because I don't like a limited mindset or to be limited in any way. And so to actually be here today with you is a special moment for me. And I'd love to get in a few things today, and hopefully we can help some people, break through mental blockages, think outside the box. Maybe somebody's been wanting to start a business. I want to go through all those things, but I want to take them all the way back to where you were born. I would love people to know um, how you were raised, first of all, and um, you know how that actually impacted your life right now as a man.
Well, is that a question?
Yes, where were you born, Dad?
Well, I was born in Johannesburg, in a city called Johannesburg City, in a street called Broadway in Kensington. I never lived there long. My father was an abusive man, pedophile. I'll say that respectfully, because he was merely just the sire that sired me into the world. And my mother, unfortunately, went through hardship and multiple beatings. And so we were shipped then off to Durban to try and make a better life between one and I would say 1 year old and maybe 12, 13 months old, and ended up having a disaster in our lives where the welfare intervened and took us away from my parents and put me in an orphanage back in Johannesburg. So from Broadway to Natal, from Natal back through a train journey with the four siblings, well, four of us, and then at 18 months old, and then handed over to nuns. And I clearly remember everything to this day, even at 18 months old, them passing me through train windows and
Oh my gosh.
riding the train with my two brothers and my sister, no adult supervision, just check in, check out, and handed over to the nuns, and then put into St. Mary's Orphanage in Rosettenville, Johannesburg.
Crazy. Okay, so at 18 months old, you were handed over to an orphanage.
Yep.
And you and your siblings all grew in that orphanage until how old were you when you left there?
Well, we stayed in the orphanage and had to separate because guys and girls couldn't live together in the orphanage due to age circumstances. So what happened is my brothers and myself were shipped off to St. George's Home in, I would say, standard 2. Now,
Wow.
I'm not sure how old that is. I think it's around 10 years old,
Well,
8 or 10 years old.
Essie's in grade 2 right now, and she's 7.
7, there we go.
Mm.
And so we were shipped off to what is called a military juvenile school. And why is it a military juvenile school? Because you're sitting with 700 boys
Mm.
separated from girls, and they regulated us to be understanding to weaponry, marching, under a strict regime where you could not move out of place or get slapped. But every afternoon you'd have to come back, take your weapon, your rifle, go shooting, go marching, do what was right to win cups for the military, and this institutionalized our thinking. It took us to a dimension where my brothers couldn't handle it.
Mm.
They couldn't handle the separation.
Mm.
They couldn't handle what came out of molestation from the housemasters of St. George's Home.
Yeah.
So my older brother ran away, and by the age of 19, he had overdosed and was dead. And my second brother um, persevered a bit in St. George's Home, and unfortunately, eventually ran away and got recruited into Boys Town. But by then he was so messed up, he was confused, and he himself eventually ran away from Boys Town, and I found him in the streets as a homeless young man, and I restored his life where I could in one of my rehabilitation centers. And eventually he passed away in my arms. He
Mm.
died in my arms, one of the most beautiful, peaceful deaths I've ever known, because I led him to the Lord. And in the last 3 years of his life, I managed to stabilize his thinking, managed to work with him in one of our rehab centers, and this was beautiful. And the death of him dying in my arms was, to me, the most beautiful experience that I'd ever witnessed in my life. And I'm so grateful to God for allowing that to happen, because we were very close. I loved him. I was the baby in the family. I
Mm.
have a sister and two brothers. Jeff was after or before me, sorry, and then my sister and my oldest brother Michael. My sister Jen has done sensational in her life, and she's raised beautiful children, grandchildren, and we're very blessed that she's still in Johannesburg. So that's the kind of upbringing I've had, from a disciplined institutionalization, really moving forward into what has molded me to this mindset.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how do you think growing up in the orphanage affected your journey and your mindset?
Well, that's an interesting question, Sir, because I saw the fear grip my siblings. I saw the anger and the animosity, and also during school holidays we had the opportunity to go and hang with a parent here or there, and the times with my father were very vicious, and he would beat my older brother, and he would beat Jeff, who was also my older brother but the younger one of the two, and this really messed with their minds, and fortunately I was the baby in this, and so I seem to have just watched from a distance and grew a resilience to me, but it followed me through my life.
Mm.
And so I had to watch out very carefully how this would mold my thinking, because they were so mentally messed up through parents messing around and not bringing an understanding of the love of parenting. They molded these kids into what they were. So in my mindset, I built up a strong power,
Mm.
and I realized that nothing's going to help me here, and so I would have to uh, work at this line upon line, a little here and there, and just take it to the next level. And funny you say this, is that when I worked in a great organization, um, I'm not I'm not ashamed of my faith, and I wish to let you know that we have been actively involved in building a huge mega ministry in South Africa. I was one of the pastors there, working with all our business people, and what it did for me was build a resilience to when people attacked me and um, assassinated or tried to attempt to assassinate my character. This resilience was birthed from this little childhood in me. And eventually they gave me the Alma Mater Award for defying rebellion and rejection, and gave me the certificate because I could manage rejection to a point that was unbeknownst, and they couldn't fathom this out. So that's how I managed to build up these strong powers within me.
So, if you don't mind me sharing a little bit about your story, that you met mom, and what a beautiful love story this has been to unfold. You met each other when you were 17 years old.
Yep.
And after you had been married, you became an alcoholic for 10 years.
Yes.
Do you think now, knowing what you know with NLP, that you may have, become an alcoholic or use that as a crutch because of suppressed emotions due to what you had been through as a child? Or is it it was more of like a spiritual thing that was trying to attach itself to your life?
I think you need to understand from an NLP perspective that if you look at science, science has proven that your DNA carries records from generations. And you go back to my generation. Presidents build president children. Look at Donald Trump and his family.
Mm.
Fools build fools. You look at criminals. You look at the Ted Bundys. You look at Ned Kellys, and I just say that respectfully. But if you follow their bloodline and their generation, you'll understand what NLP begins to speak about, and also what King Solomon and the Word of God talks about, how generational curses latch themselves onto people. So I have always been raised forcefully into churches and church life through the Anglican Church and the Catholic Church. We were forced to go there. We had no option. And so I kind of reverentially grew a relationship with God. And I always knew He was there, and I always had divine intervention from God and angelic beings. And what I witnessed in growing up is that God is not a manipulator of human beings. He will allow you to run the course and become a prodigal. And so having an entrepreneur mindset, having the ability to have the art of chase of the deal, which I developed for myself as a young kid.
Mm.
And I know you're going to question me on that.
Yeah.
I learned to be streetwise.
Mm.
And so in all my getting, I started to make a lot of money. And I never understood the true spirit of pride and what your ancestral tieback is all about.
So interesting.
And how many demons can come up from your past and start affecting you through your bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drove me to literally what they call fall back or backslide, they say. And if it wasn't for mom, she is a powerful, powerful woman. Let me tell you, you can have a woman who can put you in the gates of hell, or you can have a woman who can cover you, protect you, and really look after you and be there for you. And she stood by me for 10 years when I became a full-blown alcoholic, smoking marijuana, doing the stupidest things of my life because there was no mentorship coming through me. Money had driven me. I had learned to make a lot of money, and with this, pride set in.
Okay, so you feel like it was because of pride, not because of past trauma, that sort of sent you down the path of alcoholism?
You see, when you look at past trauma, you need to identify what is past trauma. See, I had nobody to really affect me from a nurture nature perspective, except that I was regimentally brought up. My nurture nature came in at around 12 years old when I learned to trade marijuana and start selling marijuana to my mates, and also learned how to buck the system and become streetwise. And hanging around the wrong people is really what drives people to the next dimension of their fall down.
Mm-hmm.
And so being a leader, was the leader. And I used to lead people into the wrong way. And this is why I say with me it was more about pride than it was actually about who's traumatizing me. In my brother, sister, and my other brother, Michael, they were traumatized.
Yeah.
I bucked that traumatization because I learned to fight on my feet from a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very rock solid in understanding that I could go through any circumstance. There was no ounce of fear in me for nothing.
And there still isn't.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, cool. So, there might be some people, or this podcast might stumble across people who are struggling mentally. For those that don't know what NLP is, it stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. I'd love to delve into that with you, Dad. Why did you choose to do NLP and become a master of NLP? Is that what you do?
Yes. So that's a good question, Say. And I think what you have to understand is what drives you to create a passion within yourself. If you don't find your passion, you're merely doing a job. And so my passion has always been to help people, no matter where I was. As I say, I was a natural born leader. So by creating the passion to help others, I discovered that I have a secret weapon of building people up and encourage them to be powerhouse mental changers. And so when you look at NLP, it's about changing the brain waves and the structures of people's thinking. And if you go back to the great word, the Bible, and you go back to every one of the motivational experts like Tony Robbins, like you
Mm-hmm.
just name them, John C. Maxwell,
Yeah.
you name all the Zig Ziglars, all the generational powerhouses from my time, Dale Carnegie, all of them work according to the founding principles, no matter where you go back to what King Solomon and the word actually speaks about. And that is how you rewrite your programming of your mind. Because he who controls the mind
Mm.
controls the body.
That's so good, Dad. That is so, so good. Okay, so I want to actually give people an example of how you practically helped me in my life. So, um, for those of you who don't know, I am a hairdresser and a makeup artist. I have been doing it for yonks. We've been in Australia for 16 years, and I do film and TV hair and makeup. I also do photo shoots, branded marketing, things like that, and have another business on the side where I sell clean beauty for skin and hair. So I decided to have a break and become a real estate agent. I sold my entire kit because I was like, I am not going back. I am going forward. I'm now going to be a real estate agent. And I just had my second baby and was literally breastfeeding and getting my real estate license. So you can tell what kind of parents I come from, very driven, very motivated. But for whatever reason, I think I just was like, I'm going forward. I'm going to now be a real estate agent. I tried and tried and I did sell 4 houses in that year and a half, nearly 18 months. I landed up at Ray White Burley Group, and they were amazing for sales and, just training of it all. But for some reason, I was hitting a mental block and a spiritual block non-stop daily. And I'd sit with Dad and we'd go for coffee at Barbosa, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, why is this not working for me? I'm trying my hardest and I'm trying to push forward, and it's just I can't get any listings, and I know a part of me was missing hair and makeup. And Dad said something to me that was so profound, and he was like, just rest the soil, because I felt like an absolute failure and like I was giving up, by going back and trying hair and makeup. And he said to me, just rest the soil, you've overplowed it and it's producing no fruit. And I I took his advice, and the very first job that came towards me was a massive TV ad for Virgin Australia, where I was doing hair and makeup. I spent 3 days with the crew and had so much fun, and I was absolutely hooked and have been back doing hair and makeup ever since. But the reason for me sharing that story is because I know there's so many people that are hitting their heads against the wall thinking, how could I change? What could I do? Is there any practical steps you could give somebody? Like you did for me, you said just rest the soil and try something else. And just you giving me the permission gave myself the permission to try, something new. And now I'm flourishing in my passion. And yeah, what practical steps could you give somebody that's feeling so unfulfilled right now in their life and in their career?
Well, the first question you need to do, and NLP, any good NLP understands the word ikigai.
I'm laughing because I remember the session with you.
Yeah. And when you look at ikigai, you want to find out what your passion is. How can I earn money in this passion?
Mm-hmm.
How do I serve people the best? What can I contribute to society that will make me happy and I get a payoff on this financially, mentally, and spiritually? And if you cannot find the passion of that in ikigai, or you cannot centralize yourself in understanding what this means, you will merely find yourself yoked with a job, with people trying to push you into something that you're really not. It's really the principle of uh, a square peg trying to be driven into a round hole. It's never going to happen unless you chop off something and crack it up. You're just not fitting in. So the question you got to ask yourself is, if you are sitting in the position you're in and you hate it, you obviously have missed your call. Now, what's driving you to that call? Am I chasing the buck? Am I chasing the art of the great deal? I call them fire engine deals. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Um, am I chasing pie in the skies, or have I entered into a fear phase of my life? And now, if you've entered into fear, you're simply moving along to make a job work because something of critical effect is coming upon me. And that is, I'm not earning money and I'm not doing this. Or otherwise, I've had just these pie in the sky dreams because some of my mates have really flown so high and are moving at such a rapid race. But that's because they in their passion. So the question is, what's my passion? How do I achieve my passion? How do I move in that passion? And how do I be true to myself? And that's why I said, Sarah, you've done a fantastic job. But for a year, you're plowing the ground. You're plowing the ground. You're doing hard work. You're really out there. You're winning people's favor. But what's your passion?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I separated you out of the nonsense. So you quit hearing the noise, and we started to climb mountains, and we started to climb rocks.
Yes, physically.
Yep. And we did some crazy things. I made you scream into the air where people thought, what the heck? You were too shy to even, you had lost your barbed wire Barbie
Yes.
status. It
Let's
had
let's
crushed you.
stop on that for a second, Dad. What does that mean if somebody loses their power? You said I need you to step into your warrior and scream, and I screamed, and you said, "What is that? A pussycat?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had to scream from my core. So if what is that like? Talk about that.
Well, let's look at what happens in a conflict situation between, take a male and a female, a boyfriend and a girlfriend, even if they're opposite sex, who cares? What happens is when they have a fight outside Coles, they don't give a stuff who's around them. They get into their warrior mode. You've seen people pull hair out
Mm-hmm.
of others outside Coles. So they lose all dignity and control. And they merely go into the warrior mode and start screaming and shouting and stuff you. If you look at them, they're going to look back at you and scream and shout back at you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't bypass the intuition of, oh, little me, oh, my, and step into the warrior mode, you're not going to break out of the mentality that I am nothing but a little mouse. And so it's important as an NLP warrior to bring that warrior back to the battle place so that you could shift the demeanor, the attitude, and the mindset so we could make a new decision. Because if you don't get that right, then you're merely going to stay in the position you are. And then we went on a series, if you remember, of breaking the stability and getting you fit so that your mental mindset outside, not in gyms. I took you to my gym, the universe. You see,
Yeah, the beach.
the beach, the mountain, the rocks. And by doing that, you now set a new mindset, and then I start to work on you from a mental capacity.
What are some of the most common mindset blockages that you come across face?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I found is that people are stuck in their childhood, in the traumas of their childhood. Even great people who have had wonderful mothers and fathers and have no excuse to go backwards, they're stuck in a childhood of either what they call ungodly soul ties to parents. You can have great godly soul ties to parents, but you can have ungodly soul ties to parents. Then you're also stuck in what your mates think of you, and you become influenced, as I said, through nurture and nature. This is a psychological fact. Psychologists will tell you this. They mold your thinking, they take you to where you're going to go in your future. Now, if you're stuck like an elephant chained on a peg because your mother says you can't cook the chicken that way, or you should not bungee jump, well, you're stuck in the spirit of fear where they never meant any harm, because once you bungee jump, you get to find out this is awesome. And only out of a million people, one person snaps a rope and dies. So by faith, you are stepping into something of the unknown.
So you touched on it earlier. Is physical fitness really of high importance when somebody's trying to get themselves into a really positive mindset?
Yeah. You see, if you don't work on the three dimensions of a man, and I mean male and female, of humanity, spirit first, soul second, body third. If you cannot get your spirit man in order, your soulish man, which is your mind, your will, your emotions, and your thinking, will never be set right. So it all begins in the spirit. What gets affected when you are broken down word after word, and you programmed yourself to think that I can't. It's first programmable in the heart. What King Solomon speaks about and what the great uh, personalities of the world speak about is, as a man thinks in his heart, it's not his blood pump, it's his spirit man. As he thinks of himself, he will never get himself to the correct place of where I mentally can re-engage. And so it's important to find the true source of what really works your spirit man. And in my case, people have other beliefs and whatever, and some of them are very successful, but I have come to understand through divine intervention that my spirit is connected to the Almighty God, and Jesus Christ is my Savior. And so if I connect these two first and I operate in the spirit realm and listen to what the manual says, I now correct my thinking. And then if you look at, once you've corrected your thinking set, your thinking goes to another dimension because you reprogramming. I love what uh, what's her name? The South African neuroscientist,
Oh, Caroline Leaf.
Caroline Leaf. She's so powerful at this. She proved that your brain has plasticity, that you can rewire your brain.
Yep.
Well, Romans chapter 12 in the Word of God tells you that clearly, and that's been around for 2,000 years. Renew your thinking, re edit your thinking, reprogram your thinking, and you shall become a powerhouse. So, spiritually, you need to get yourself right.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, through your soulish realm, your mind, your perception, you need right. Then, boom, your body follows. So, it's vitally important. I can tell you now that you can have a powerhouse steroid junkie whose body is powered up, but his mind
Mm-hmm.
and his spirit is
Mm-hmm.
foul.
Yeah. So it's all got to come into alignment. Okay. So you touched on your spiritual walk and your faith in God. I would love to take the listeners back to that exact moment where you were in the bathroom and you felt like audibly God spoke to you, and how that pivoted your whole life into the direction of the faith in Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And um, how do you know God is so real? Like you have so much conviction when you teach me about God and about the Bible, and I'm so grateful for it. And how do you know that God is so real? And obviously we'll go back to the exact point that God pivoted your whole life. But then I'd love to know how you know God is so real and how you apply God even into your business life.
That's a good question. So, what happened to me at the age of 30 is I'm now a full blown alcoholic. I'm an avid businessman. I'm running a plumbing company that's making good coin. I've got a couple of guys working for me, running trucks, and anyone who knows a plumber. I mean, my doctors used to say, "My God, you've just invoiced me so much money. We're brain surgeons. We don't earn what you earn." I said, "Well, this is what it's about. We earn the coin." And so, as I said, this led me into the wrong direction of life, and I've always known God. As I said, God becomes the father to the orphan, the husband to the widow. And those that are lonely need never be alone, because when you're alone, you're actually alone with God. You just haven't found that out.
Mm,
And so with me, I still love the Lord because I was raised reverentially, religiously, and had divine encounters with angels and God as a child.
wow.
And then backslid, as I said. And at the age of 30, I'm now doing pretty good in business. I'm about to lose houses. I'm about to throw my family away, and I'm full blown alcoholic because now not only am I running a plumbing company, but I've also been chosen as one of the building inspectors in a highfalutin position. And this quadrupled my business, it quadrupled my favor, and people were just feeding me Johnny Walker's Black Label bottles, Red Label bottles,
Mm,
Shivers Regal. So I was getting the best that you could think of. And this just drove me into an abyss.
mm,
And eventually I knew there was a moral compass in me that knew I was doing wrong.
wow.
And so mom drove us home one night after having been with one of my best friends, Graham. We had potted ourselves stupid. And I was in an argumentative mode. And eventually mom was very upset. And when I go back to these times, I realize what a fool I really was. And so I slept on the bed with one of the children, one of my boys, Don or Andrew, I'm not sure which one. And I was woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning and literally ran to the bathroom to vomit. And as I was kneeling over the toilet, stoned, messed up, smoked up, messed up, an audible voice, like we're speaking right now on this station,
Wow.
spoke to me exactly the same way. My son, I'm about to take my hands off you or help you. Make a decision today, this day, who you'll serve. And silence. And I looked around and saw nobody. And so I looked down at the bowl and I looked and I was, what do you call, Arthur gargling, or, I wanted to bring up. And eventually I said this out, God, I will serve you. I want to serve you. And the voice came back instantly. Well, then I'll heal you this second.
Wow.
And I was instantly healed. I was sobered in a minute, instantly. I got up off the bathroom floor and I heard the audible voice. I saw nothing. I've had encounters. I know what I'm looking for. I saw nothing but a voice, heard nothing but a voice. And the voice said to me, now go tell your wife. And here I am, sobered up completely, right frame of mind, walking down the passage to mom. And mom is sitting up waiting for me. She's had the same divine encounter. Your husband will be walking down the hallway to come and tell you he has been healed and delivered. And she was in tears. And
Wow.
she said, wow. I said, Kath, I've just had an encounter with God. He's healed me completely. He has set me free. And instantly the voice came back to me and said, go tell my people. And that was the catalytic turning point, because a week later I started the first Alcoholic Anonymous group of guys in the Methodist Church.
Wow.
And people were set free and instantly healed of alcohol. And one of them with heroin. It was mind blowing how God just began a journey with me in that circumstance.
So, did you never drink from that night?
Never even had the craving. People have offered me alcohol. They've said to me, don't you want a wine? I said, what for? I'm drinking the new wine. I'm empowered by a gift that is sensational. You cannot replace it. I've been down the drunken pathways. I know my God. And I learned to discover that the more I leant onto him and discovered his word, it blew me away of the relationship that I formed with my maker.
Wow. That's incredible, because I don't know if it was like that back when you were 30, but I'm 36 now, and there is a pressure and a heaviness to go party, to go drink. There is a constant, let's go have a jolt, or let's go have a party, and I'm sure you would have experienced that as well, like when you were that age. And for God to have taken away your whole craving of alcohol is like a complete healing, right?
Yes.
And so that is just absolutely amazing to hear that and I know you have helped so many people since then that have been drug addicts and alcoholics. So if somebody's listening to this and they have a family member or themselves are absolutely addicted to drugs or alcohol, how can they be saved? Like, what can they do today to be like, help me, somebody help me?
Well, you see, I went beyond the point of peer pressure. What happened to me is, as I said, generational curses came back to visit me. And so what I had to then do is seek divine intervention. Now, people go through different methods of divine intervention. Hypnosis, they go through deliverance, they go through. Let me tell you something. Unless you can track back on your timelines and identify where the problems really started, you might go through a cycle of cleanliness or cleansing out these habits and destructions. But unless you've really dealt with them in a perfect way, in a way that you've reprogrammed your thinking, in a way that you've redirected your habits, you're merely taking a walk, and you're going to come back and revisit the demons that you saw behind and that you worked in and around you through those hardships. So if you had to say to me, so how would they go about this? Well, obviously you need a mentor. You need somebody who can help you through stuff. And mentors are just really there to speak into you and to uplift you and to show you a different perspective of life. And so if you don't find, I was very fortunate, very, very fortunate that I had lent on the Spirit of the living God, whom I didn't know the character of, but I lent on the Word of God and God Himself until I really came to know who the Holy Spirit was. and I was instantly divinely healed. But most people, majority of people, actually need somebody to help them, and everybody knows that. And so it's important that you seek somebody who can help you, speak into you, and direct where you've been stuck and take you out of that plateau
Yeah.
and move you up to a higher plane.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. That's amazing. Um, so my last question, so we can land this plane, Dad, is what legacy do you hope to leave behind through your work and influence?
Anyone who knows me, I have many thousands of people worldwide who know me.
Mm.
This isn't about me. The legacy that I want to leave behind is the beautiful family, grandchildren that look up at me and say, my God, this is the most incredible man. This is the most beautiful dad, grandpa. The legacy I want to leave behind is 4 entrepreneur children, because that's what I have.
Mm-hmm.
The legacy that I want to leave behind is 4 eagles that know how to navigate the storms. The legacy that I want to leave behind, and you know how I work with each one of my grandchildren, I break the fears in them.
Yes.
I make them do the craziest things. They laugh nonstop with me. They think I'm their teddy bear. So the legacy that I want to leave behind is not about what accolades I have.
Mm.
It's not about how much money I have made. The legacy that I want to leave behind, and they can put this on my grave one day, is here lies a man that knew how to change people's lives.
1000%. You know, that is exactly how I see you, and that is what I'll hold in my heart forever. It has been such a blessing to have you basically, start out my podcast with such a bang. And you have so much wealth and so much knowledge inside of you that this time has flown by. I can't wait to have you back because I feel like I could dig inside of you for hours. But yeah, if there's any woman out there that are wanting an online based business, you're wanting to look after your body, hair and makeup, vegan skincare, I would love to have you reach out to me.
Yep.
If you are looking for anything to help you break your mental barriers, to a coach that is able to help you, set out all your goals and smash them. That is my dad. Where can the people find you, Dad? On Instagram?
Yeah, I'm not a big social networker. I really believe in divine appointments and people that cross my path. Now, my kids laugh at me because they are social networkers. They are social butterflies. I am on Instagram under mental plasticity. Mental plasticity. That's my page. I am on Facebook under my own Billionaires Network. Billionaires Network. I'm on Facebook under my name, Tony Walter Giroux.
I'll put all the stuff down below in
You
the
put it up
notes. Yeah.
for them. And my wife and I are experts at marriage counseling, having been married 45 years,
Mm-hmm.
been through some hardships. We can certainly direct you to the right way. But we're going to tell you the truth. We're not going to pussyfoot around that.
Amazing. So if you guys have really enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I will be putting out more content in the future and having more very special guests on my podcast. But Dad, thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you very much, Cez, and thank you to all of the beautiful people out there. We love you all.